Hi guys, it's David here again. This time I'm talking about practice. So Joe and Fergus have both made videos about how they practice and how they approach their practice. Now it's my turn. So I thought quite hard about this one and the best way to approach it. Because really the way I would advise people to practice and the way that I actually practice are two quite different things. And kind of in an ideal world, there's lots of things that I wish I did better and I would tell other people to do, but realistically I don't do them. So I figured I'd kind of explain how I vaguely approach my practice and then maybe give some tips at the end. So essentially, I think it's really good to have a set routine. And in an ideal world, I would have, 5 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this, in the way that Joe kind of details in his video. I'd love to be able to do that. I just can't. I can't do that. And maybe some of you struggle with that as well. I just find that particularly when it comes to setting time limits on things, if I get really into an exercise or a musical thing, I'll just keep going with it. And I just like practicing that way. And I've kind of come to a point where I just kind of know that about myself. I know that I'm kind of scatterbrained. And if I get into something, I'm just going to do that. And rather than fight that and think, no, I have to divide my time equally, I think there's a lot of value in kind of practicing what you want to practice and what you feel like practicing at that time, because that's what you're going to be most motivated to practice at that time. So the way I structure my practice now, knowing that about myself and knowing that I'm kind of scatterbrained, I like doing different things and I get distracted easily. Basically, I try and think about three main areas of playing that we should all be trying to improve at all times. So the three main areas are sound/technique, that's one. Rhythm and time, that'd be the second one. And then the third one, music, or kind of like musical content, I'd call it. And then you could add a fourth one, which would be ear training, which I'm not going to talk too much about because I've already made 3 videos on that. So I'll go through and kind of unpack those a little bit. So the first one, in terms of, I think technique and sound, they're kind of linked, because why do we practice technique? It's to sound better on our instrument. So things I would practice under that banner would be like long tone exercises on the double bass, like bowing really slow notes, trying to get a nice sound. On the electric bass, like string crossing exercises, like left hand things, scales, I guess you could put under there. Kind of any technical stuff I'd put into that, and I try and be working on that each time I practice, do something on that. The next category, super important for everyone, not just rhythm section players, time and rhythm. Lots of ways you can work on it. So I actually made a video about this called Time for Rhythm Section Players, so that'd be something to watch if you're interested. But really, I do things like I play a lot of slow tempos. I spend a lot of time working on really slow tempos. And also just working your way through the different tempos, doing like rhythm exercises. These are all ways you can practice that category. And then the third one, a very broad one, musical content, which kind of a lot of the stuff we do in jazz school falls into this category. Like, how do you play over changes? What are you going to play over changes? Melodic content, phrasing, learning tunes, transcribing. That would all fall into this third category. Like, we're trying to improve what we play. So the first category is trying to improve the sound, how you sound on your instrument. The second one is your rhythm and time. The third one is what you actually play. And I think if you're working on those 3 areas, you're going to continue to get better. And the reason I like kind of approaching practice like that is because it allows me to be more flexible in what I work on, because lots of things will hit more than one of those areas. So if I practice like a technical exercise really slowly with the metronome at 40 or 30, that's working on my time and it's working on my technique and sound. If I transcribe a lick and play that in a load of different keys, that can be a technically challenging thing. So that's working on my technique and sound and my musical content. And so I try and think of these exercises or things that I know are going to hit these different areas. And I find for me that is quite an effective way of practicing. And I feel like I make a lot of gains doing that. And it works better for me than having a really specific routine that I go through every day. So that's my general approach to practice. And now here are some more general tips. So the first tip I would say is don't neglect your time or your sound. A lot of the stuff we talk about in jazz school, a lot of the questions we get is it's more to do with the musical content. Like, what are we going to play? What do you play here? What can you play on this chord? How can I play over 2-5-1s, etc. All that stuff's really important, obviously. But what is, I think, more important than what you play is how you sound when you play it. John Patitucci, who's kind of a legendary bass player, he talks about this a lot. He talks about time and sound as the two non-negotiables. You have to have them. If you play a cool lick but with bad time and out of tune, it's bad. Whereas you could play something that's kind of nonsense but with a great sound and great time, and it'll sound good. So really, they're like the two cheat codes to playing well, really, I think, are sound and time. So spend a lot of time thinking about them and working on them, I think. So the second tip is try and be specific with what you practice. Notice I said the word try there. This is something that I struggle with a lot, is practicing the same thing over time. But really, the times I think when I've made the biggest jumps forward in my playing have been when I've been really specific and had a certain thing that I've done day after day, and then you see more cumulative benefits. So that's what I would advise you to do that. I don't always manage to do that, but that would be my advice. Tip number 3, I think the best way to hit as many target areas as possible is transcribing. If you're transcribing something that works on your technique, it works on your ear, it works on your musical content like harmony, you'll learn lots of nice licks, and it also works on rhythm and phrasing. I think I've learned more about how to place things rhythmically from transcribing than anything else. So I think really that's the fastest way to get better. And another really quick way of getting better as well is playing along with records. Like if you're a rhythm section player and you hear something that you think has a cool groove, learn it and play along with it. That kind of practice is just the quickest and I think the most natural way to improve. It's a very musical way of practicing, and I think it's the most fun. Which leads me on to my last tip, which is practice should be fun. You should be doing things that you enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it. Particularly if you're not, aspiring to be a professional player. If you're doing it for fun, it should be fun. And if you're not enjoying it, then there's something wrong with that. And that's kind of the thing that my philosophy of practice kind of hinges on, is I practice the things I want to practice at that time because I want to practice them. And so just making sure I'm aware of the need to hit different areas like time, sound, content, it kind of enables me to practice the things I want to practice and make sure I'm still going to be getting better by doing that. So those are kind of my tips for practice. Hopefully they're useful in some way. As the other guys said, everyone practices differently. Everyone has different things that work for them. So hopefully this maybe rings a bit true with some of you. Maybe it won't, but that's fine. See you guys soon.